Hello, my dear students. Welcome back to the reading of the chapter, The Bond of Love. We have read up to the part that with the passage of time, the bear, Bruno, became too big to be kept at home. The author, his friends, and his son advised the author's wife to gift Baba to the zoo at Mysore. But the author's wife was not ready initially, but after some weeks of such advice, she finally agreed. A letter was written to the curator of the zoo, and he agreed to take the bear. Baba was sent to Mysore Zoo in a cage. But the author's wife felt very sad. She wept and for the first few days refused to take food. She wrote a number of letters to the curator, also, curator of the zoo, and she asked in her letters about the condition of Baba. And she got the replies that Baba was also in the similar condition. He was also not taking food properly and was little sad. So he was inconsolable and he did not take food for the first few days too. So he was well but looked thin and sad. Now, the author's wife, she was very sad at the separation from the bear. So, for the first 3 months, the author, he tried to restrain her from visiting Mysore. At last, he took his wife to Mysore Zoo to meet Baba. The author and his friends had guessed that the bear would not recognize her after 3 months, but as soon as Baba saw her when she was yards away from the cage, he recognized her. He cried with happiness, and the author's wife, she ran up to him and patted him. And we also see that how Baba stood on his head in delight, in happiness. So we will now start reading from paragraph 17 here. So for the next 3 hours, she would not leave that cage. She, here is the author's wife. She had come to Mysore Zoo with her husband to meet Baba there. So for the first 3 hours, she refused to leave the cage. She has brought many things for Baba, so she gave him tea, lemonade, cakes, ice creams, and whatnot. And after that, the closing time came and we had to leave. So the narrator, the author says that as there was limited visiting hours, so when the visiting hours came to an end, it was the closing time, they had to leave the place. He says, my wife cried bitterly. Baba cried bitterly. Even the hardened curator and the keepers felt depressed. So the author says that when the closing time came, the author's wife, she wept bitterly. She felt that she could not live without the bear. And the author says that even the Baba, the Bruno, the bear, he also felt very sad. He also cried bitterly. Even the curator, who was little hard-hearted man, he also felt very bad. And the persons that were there, the zookeepers also, they all felt depressed, seeing both of them crying bitterly. The author says, as for me, I had reconciled myself to what I knew was going to happen next. So the author says that he had prepared himself. Reconciled means he had adjusted to the situation as he already knew what was going to happen next. And author's wife said, oh, please, sir, she asked the curator, may I have my Baba back? So he knew that his wife would definitely request the curator there to give her Baba back. And thus she requested that if she could, if she might get her Baba back. Hesitantly he answered, madam, he belongs to the zoo and is government property now. I cannot give away government property, but if my boss, the superintendent at Bangalore, agrees, certainly you may have him back. So the curator, in a little hesitant manner, hesitate karna, jhijhakna, he hesitated in replying, but then he said that as Baba was now the property of zoo, it was a government property now, so he was not in a position to give her back, and thus he gave a solution also to this. He said that the superintendent of the zoo, who is the boss of the zoo, he can only help her in such a situation. There followed the return journey to Bangalore and a visit to the superintendent's bungalow. So, as suggested by the curator, the author and his wife they returned to Bangalore, and at first they went straight to superintendent's house. A tearful pleading request, निवेदन करना, आंसुओं से भरा निवेदन. The wife said, the author's wife said, Baba and I are both fretting for each other. Will you please give him back to me? So she again requested the superintendent here, saying that they both were upset, they both were sad, they were missing each other, and if he would give her back Baba. He was a kind hearted man and consented. So we see here that the superintendent was also very kind hearted man. So he agreed. Consent karna apni इच्छा से उसने हामी भरी. He said he agreed to give back Baba to the author's wife. Not only that, but he wrote to the curator telling him to lend us a cage for transporting the bear to Bangalore. So we see the generous nature here that not only did he consented to give Baba back, but also he wrote a letter to the curator of the zoo that he should lend a cage. Lend karna, inko cage udhar dena, so that they can take Bruno with them to Bangalore for so that Bruno can be easily transported without any trouble. Back we went to Mysore again, armed with the superintendent's letter. So here armed means equipped means having the support of the letter. They went back to Mysore because now with the help of this letter, they were in a position to take back Baba. Baba was driven into a small cage and hoisted on top of the car. So hoisted means he was lifted on top of the car with the help of the rope. So he was hoisted on top of the car. The cage was tied securely and a slow and careful return journey to Bangalore was accomplished. So as Baba was now placed on top of the car, the cage was placed on top of the car. So it was uh, obviously a precaution was taken by the narrator that he should drive slow and carefully. So that's why a slow and careful return journey to Bangalore was fulfilled, completed, accomplished. Once home, a squad of coolies were engaged for special work in our compound. Squad of coolies means a team of workers was employed to execute some work in the backyard. So जो compound area था, जो courtyard area था घर के साथ, उस area में कुछ लोगों को काम पे लगाया गया. They were actually given the task to do some important work there. An island was made for Baba. It was 20 feet long and 15 feet wide. So, in the compound area of the house, an island was created for Baba to live there. Because now Baba was a full grown bear and he had to be kept isolated, and that is why an island was created which was 20 feet long and 15 feet wide. Then it was also surrounded by a dry pit or moat. एक डिच सा एक गड्ढा सा बनाया गया सराउंडिंग द आइलैंड विच वाज 6 feet वाइड एंड 7 feet डीप. सो इसलिए ताकि ब्रूनो जो है वो आइसोलेटेड रह सके, ब्रूनो जो है मेन लैंड तक ना पहुंच सके, सो दैट ही शुड नॉट हार्म एनीबडी बिकॉज ही वाज अ फुल ग्रोन बेयर नाउ एंड चिल्ड्रन दे शुड नॉट गेट अफ्रेड ऑफ हिम. सो द प्रिकॉशन वाज टेकन एंड एन आइलैंड वाज बिल्ट एंड a ditch was also created. एक गड्ढा सा बनाया गया उस आइलैंड के चारों तरफ. A wooden box that once housed fowls was brought and put on the island for Baba to sleep. So वहां पर जो आइलैंड था वहां पर बाबा के लिए एक वुडन बॉक्स भी प्लेस किया गया सो दैट ही कुड स्लीप इन एट नाइट. हाउस्ड फाउल्स मीन्स जहां पर पहले मुर्गियां और अदर एनिमल्स को रखा जाता था. सो दैट वुडन बॉक्स वाज ब्रॉट so that Baba could sleep at night. And straw was placed inside to keep him warm. And his baby, the gnarled stump, gnarled कहते हैं ट्विस्टेड लकड़ी, gnarled का मतलब होता है ट्विस्टेड. सो जो gnarled stump जिसको वो बेबी की तरह ट्रीट करता था, along with his gun, the piece of bamboo, so both of which had been sentimentally preserved since he had been sent away to the zoo, were put back for him to play with. Now Otto's wife, she was very deeply attached with Bruno and also with her belongings, with its belongings. So when Bruno was sent to zoo, she had kept those things of Bruno safely with her, and as she was emotionally attached to Bruno and also with with the belongings of Bruno, and that is why when Bruno was back, she brought all those things and again placed it in the box which was kept there for Bruno. In a few days, the coolies hoisted the cage onto the island and Baba was released. So when the island was properly prepared, then Bruno was released. उसे आजाद कर दिया गया उस island में, and thus so that he could not cause any threat to the people living nearby. So finally Bruno was back in the house and he had a safe place there. He was placed in the island there. He was delighted. Standing in his hind legs, he pointed his gun and cradled his baby. So Baba was also extremely happy when he was released on that island. So he showed his delight by again playing all those tricks that he used to play. He started pointing his gun and he cradled his baby. My wife spent hours sitting on a chair there while he sat on her lap. So the wife was now free to spend time with with Bruno. So she spent hours there and Bruno would sit on her lap. He was 15 months old and pretty heavy too. Although Bruno had grown in size, but still he would sit on the lap of Otto's wife. The way my wife reaches the island and leaves it is interesting. Now, the author also shares this incident because a ditch was created surrounding the island. So it was not easy to go to the island. So he says that the way his wife would go to that place was also very interesting, and she would frequently visit Baba there, and the way she would leave the place, it was an interesting incident. He says that I have tied a rope to the overhanging branch of a mango tree with a loop at its end. So there was a mango tree, and on that mango tree, they had tied one rope. So they have tied that rope there with a loop at the end. So जो उसका end का हिस्सा था, he had made a loop there. So putting one foot in the loop, she kicks off with the other to bridge the 6 foot gap that constitutes the width of the surrounding pit. So then she would keep her foot on the loop that was created and then kick off to the other side, and swinging through a swinging method, she would reach the island. So this way she would fly in the air to cover the 6 foot long distance to reach the island. And the author says that she would make the return trip also in the similar way. So the return journey is made the same way. But who can say now that a sloth bear has no sense of affection, no memory, and no individual characteristic? So, when we see Baba, when we see the affection shared by Baba and the narrator's wife, we conclude that animals do also have emotions. They remember people, and all of them have individual qualities just like human beings have. And the way we see that after 3 months, also, the way Bruno recognized Arthur's wife, the way he shared his happiness, it shows that how that these animals they also share love and affection, and they have also individual qualities just like people, other human beings. They also can remember people and share their love and affection towards them. So dear students, what we see that the bond of love story, it is the story of love and friendship between an animal and a human being. And we see that how we the humans are endowed with several types of emotions, that is love, hatred, grief, revenge, and our dealing with the others is largely governed by our respective emotions for them. But the author also adds to this fact that it is wrong to think that these qualities of head and heart are confined to humans only. Animals too display these emotions from time to time. They too shower love upon their benefactors and suffers the pang, the grief of separation from their dear ones. The way we see that how, when Bruno was separated, he also felt the pain of separation. So this bears the best example to prove the fact expressed by the author in the story. So thus it is it makes the fact clear that how animals they also show the feelings of love and affection. They also have individual qualities in them, just like we human beings have. So, students, this is all about the chapter, The Bond of Love. In the next session, we'll be discussing the question answers of the chapter. So, come prepared. Thank you all. Have a nice day.